What's up guys, Gray here. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, we're shifting gears a bit. We like to cover both the PvE and PvP side of the game here on the channel, and it has been far too long since we have done anything PvP related. Today, that changes. With Bungie bringing anti-cheat to the game this season and the Trials revamp bringing more players into the playlist than ever before, I thought now would be a great time to touch on some of the fundamentals of PvP and the crucible in Destiny 2. I recently did a poll on my channel asking what type of player you consider yourself. The results showed that the majority of people who voted view themselves as a PvE main type of player. We have some mixed players in there that do both and a few who focus primarily on PvP. The point I want to make today is that it is never a bad thing to be a more well-rounded player, touching on all aspects of the game. You'll understand both sides of the sandbox, and you might even understand some of the things that Bungie changes when they do balance passes a little bit better. This video is going to touch on some of the basic understandings of PvP. We're going to talk about stats, primary weapons, some basic movement tips, and touch on a couple different subclasses to use. You might consider yourself an expert in some of these areas, but it never hurts to touch up on the fundamentals. And if you're brand new to the Crucible, I wanted to give you a place to land and arm you with the knowledge to get your footing inside of Destiny 2 PvP. Some of the subjects we're going to talk about today can go pretty in depth, so I'm going to try to keep it simple and touch on the most important aspects of each subject. But real quick, before we get into it, if you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit that like button down below, and if you're really enjoying the content, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. That's all you're going to get from me. That's my plug. Let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is something that is important across all of your different characters and classes, your stats. In Destiny 2, we have 6 different main stats: mobility, resilience, recovery, discipline, intellect, and strength. All of these stats provide a benefit to you, but there are certain ones that matter much more inside of PvP, so let's start there. If you really want to give yourself the best chance at being able to survive while in the Crucible, we need to start with the most important stat: recovery. Recovery affects how fast your health and shields will return to you after an engagement. This is critical in PvP as this determines how often you can enter an engagement with confidence and at full health. It also allows you to re-engage faster, which can allow you to catch your opponent off guard. They're gonna think you need to be behind cover longer and you can peek back out and surprise them. Ideally, you want to be at 100 recovery at all times in PvP. Even if that means putting a recovery mod on every single piece of armor you have, do it. As you get gear with better stat distributions, you'll be able to mix this up a little bit, but for now, 100 recovery is your first priority on any class. The next 2 stats you'll want to focus on may change depending on what you deem important, and there's definitely some nuance here, so let's talk about it a little bit. Mobility and intellect. If you were to ask me, I would tell you to prioritize mobility over intellect first. Mobility doesn't sound like it does much on paper, but in practice, it can help you out greatly. Mobility increases your base movement speed, and that's important to note. It's your base movement speed, not your sprint speed. It also affects your base jump height on your first jump. The reason this is so important is because it's going to allow you to strafe from left to right much faster during engagements. You can see the difference between being at low mobility and high mobility. Your strafe speed is drastically different. This is going to make you a harder target to hit while you're dueling, and it can increase your survivability a lot. Now, I know there's certain cases where some classes may be able to skate with their jump better with lower mobility, but that's pretty niche, and honestly still, I would take the improved strafe speed for dueling over being able to yeet yourself around the map in Mach speed. If you're playing Hunter, this stat is doubly important as mobility also affects your dodge cooldown, which is one of your most central abilities. In layman's terms, the higher your mobility, the better. If you're able to have 100 recovery and 100 mobility, that's fantastic, but be sure to focus on recovery first. The more we talk about these different stats, the more you might start to realize how they benefit you in different ways. If you're more comfortable focusing on other stats, then by all means, you're free to do so, but the next stat you would typically want to focus on would be intellect. It's a very straightforward stat, intellect reduces the cooldown of your super. This gives you access to your strongest abilities more often and sometimes multiple times per game. While you will most likely always earn a super at some point during your crucible match, it can really swing the tides in game modes like Trials and Competitive, where entire rounds can be won because of just one super. Again, you'll want this to be as high as possible, but don't give up recovery for the sake of intellect. It's nice, but not worth dying over. Obviously, we still have 3 stats to talk about, and while they are important, it's going to be up to you to decide how much value you place on them. Resilience will ever so slightly increase your health pool as you push the stat higher, which may make you more difficult to kill with certain weapons, and it can certainly help you live sometimes, but I wouldn't recommend sacrificing other stats for the sake of resilience. Oftentimes in Destiny, if you're gonna die, you're gonna die, and no amount of resilience would have saved you. When it comes to discipline and strength, again, very straightforward. These control your grenade and melee cooldowns, and if that is something you value for your particular build or subclass, don't be afraid to spec into them. Again, follow that golden rule of 100 recovery first and foremost before messing with your other stats. Okay, now that's enough about stats and number crunching. When do we get to the good part? When do we actually get to use our weapon? One of the best things about Destiny, in my opinion, is how different one weapon can feel from another, either within the same type of family, like hand cannon to hand cannon, or more drastically going between different primary weapons, like hand cannons, pulses, or SMGs. Each type of primary offers a different kind of playstyle, and you'll really want to take some time to learn what you connect with the most and how to play to its strengths. Some advice I learned a long time ago and will pass on to you: if you're constantly switching between hand cannons to pulses to SMGs to scout rifles, you might be selling yourself short. I know I might sound a little contradictory after telling you to find the weapon you connect with, which will definitely take some experimenting, but you definitely want to give it some time. If you constantly switch weapons and playstyles after every match, it's going to take you a lot longer to learn all the nuance that comes with, say, a pulse rifle playstyle. All weapons in Destiny have advantages and disadvantages, and sadly, not all weapons can be made equal. Some may have a faster time to kill, some may have better in-air accuracy, giving you a really mobile playstyle, and some may require you to be right up in your opponent's face. They all have pros and cons. I won't dive too far into it, but understand there will always be certain weapon archetypes that perform better than others in PvP. You'll definitely learn this the more you play, so give it some time, but one type of pulse rifle may prove to just be straight up better and stronger than other pulse rifles. The quicker you adapt to that, the better. Now, I don't want to tell you to obsess over the time to kill on your weapon, but it is important to understand the lethality of your weapon and how to best use it. Some will be better for 6v6. Some will be better for 3v3. It takes time and experience to find your playstyle and master it, so keep your eyes open and pay attention to what you die to the most, because you might find trends before other people do. And of course, you're going to want to find a special weapon that works for you as well, such as a sniper, shotgun, or fusion rifle. All of these are very strong right now, so pick whatever fits your flow and whatever you feel most comfortable with. They're all capable of one-shotting Guardians, so use what you like. They're all very strong. Now, the next subject we're going to touch on is kind of a doozy. We're going to talk about movement. Movement is part of the core Destiny experience, and it's really part of what makes the game feel so incredible. Being able to triple jump or glide, slide or sprint, dodge or float, all while firing your weapon and taking your opponent on from unique angles is a huge part of what separates an average player from an elite one. Learning to master your movement will take time and lots of practice. One of the most important things you can do is pay attention to what an enemy did when they managed to outmaneuver you, and find ways to incorporate that into your own playstyle. There are also 3 pieces of exotic armor, one for each class, that can greatly boost some of your movement capabilities. These are the transversive steps for warlocks, the dune marchers for titans, and the stompies for hunters. These all give you boosts to either your slide or your jump, and these 3 exotics have defined the Crucible for a long time. There are dozens of other exotics that can be extremely powerful when used in the right way or with the right build, but the neutral benefits that these 3 exotics provide cannot be denied. On the other side of that coin, you're going to find players that would prefer not to use these, as they may refer to it as a crutch, for lack of a better word, preferring to focus more on specific exotics that benefit their specific playstyle. That is absolutely something you can do too, but if you find yourself coming up short on a slide or having trouble moving around the map, the strength of these movement exotics will help you out greatly. I would love to say there is a step-by-step guide to improving your movement in Destiny 2, but sadly there isn't. Depending on your type of input, you're also going to end up controlling your character differently. Controller players have a much different way of controlling their movement versus a mouse and keyboard player. Learning your jumps and slides is very important. It's going to help you be able to bait enemy players and outmaneuver them in a gunfight. Movement is a massive skill climb. Learning your proper positioning, learning the enemy's movement and abilities will simply take time. I would love to do a video detailing more advanced movement tips and tricks, so if you're into that, let me know. For the sake of time, we're going to move on for now. Now, one of your final choices is going to be, what subclass do I play? Just like weapons, some subclasses will perform better in PvE than they will in PvP. This is natural and makes perfect sense, and while you can certainly take a Well of Radiance Warlock or a Top Tree Tether Hunter into PvP, it might not be the most effective option. Now obviously, a really skilled player can probably make just about anything work, but there are definitely some subclasses that have very strong neutral game abilities or really strong movement capabilities. We could obviously make entire videos about specific subclasses, but I wanted to give some quick examples for each class. On Warlocks, Top Tree Dawnblade is still incredibly strong. Middle Tree and Bottom Tree Arc are both really great options as well, and you might even be able to get away with using Bottom Tree Void and Devour. And of course, you can always go to the dark side and run Stasis, as it's still a really great option for Warlocks. On Hunters, Middle Tree Void is very powerful, offering great neutral game and invisibility paired with a strong super. Bottom and Top Tree Gunslinger are both great in the right hands, and it's personally my favorite subclass to play. And as a friend recently pointed out to me, Middle Tree Arc is fantastic for things like Trials, where you may need to counter another super. And of course, Stasis Hunter is extremely strong as well, between Shatter Dive and the Silence and Squall super. For Titans, right now I view Bottom Tree Arc and Middle Tree Arc as top tier options for all my Titans out there. The neutral game on Bottom Tree Arc is absolutely perfect for shotgun players, where Thunder Crash on Middle Tree is fantastic for Trials and for shutting the enemy down. You can mess around with Bubble Titan or even Bottom Tree Solar, as they can perform really well, but you might need sort of a deeper understanding of the subclass to truly pull it off. You'll learn more about the interactions of your subclass simply by playing it, so get out there and step into the crucible. There is a broad range of skill across Destiny players, from fresh new lights who have never touched an FPS to expert veterans who breathe PvP. With Bungie finally investing some resources into PvP, there's never been a better time to invest in your own skill and improve as a player. I want to continue to do videos like this, as I love to try and help people improve at the game. So if there's a particular subject you'd like to see me cover, shout it out in the comments. I always check them, and I will certainly see yours. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and good luck stepping into the Crucible. It can be hectic and fast-paced, but with the right understanding of mechanics and game knowledge on your side, you'll be landing kills and slaying out in no time. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below for me and consider subscribing to the channel. That's all from me today, and I will see you next time.